Hi, and welcome to Photography Tuesday, a very special time of the week where I focus on one quick tip, you learn something new, and then go on with your day. Let's dive in. Do you remember last week when we nailed manual mode? Well, today we're talking about how to get a perfect exposure using histogram, your camera exposure in a graph. This guy up here. The histogram is separated in three main sections. The left section are your shadows and your blacks. The middle section are your midtones, and the right section are your highlights and your whites. If you have a peak on one side or on the other, that means the sum of those pixels are either full black or full white. Let's break down with a few real examples. The first example is when you have kind of a symmetrical histogram with no clippings on either side, kind of a mountain shape. That means it's a balanced scene. You have a decent contrast, you still have all your pixels are perfectly shown. Some people say this is the ideal for most scenes. On a brighter scene, the graph will shift to the right. In this case, what you have to pay attention is not to clip the whites, not to make it too bright, because even if you add it, you can't bring those pixels back. Those pixels are still gonna be gray rather than the color they should be. And the last scenario is when you shift your graph to the left. This means it's a darker image, and in this case you have to make sure you're not clipping the blacks, because if you bring those pixels back from the edit, well, then they are also going to be gray rather than the color they should be. Quick tip is for you to use a histogram when you're shooting, not just when you're reviewing the photo. By using the histogram when you're shooting, that helps you to not overexpose or underexpose your photos. Although modern cameras have a very decent dynamic range and they can recover a lot of their information, especially if you're shooting RAW, something that's very over or underexposed is very hard for you to recover even in post-production. Now you ask me, how does my histogram look on my photos? When I take the photos, they look kind of dark. When I edit my photos, then they look very dark. They are very much kind of everything onto the left. Does that mean that my histogram is wrong? Not really, it just means that this is my style of editing. I like darker photos. I like to make them dark, and I like to make my subject slightly brighter. So when people look at my photos, their eye goes straight where I want them to go. It's just my style. It's not either right or wrong. It's just the way how it works for me on this moment of my career. If you like your photos to be balanced, there's nothing wrong with it. I just like to make them darker. For next week, let's talk about focus modes, because there's no point of taking a balanced photo if it's out of focus. See you then.